Hi, my name is Steve Mulberry, and I want to take a few minutes and share some strategies and lessons we've learned from helping our customers adopt the utility network, specifically for water systems and leverage cloud services. Both of these technologies can be challenging to understand when to use or how to make the migration or best practices and strategies for making that switch. We at GISinc believe that all organizations can benefit greatly from leveraging both of these technologies, the utility network and cloud services. They both truly introduce a modernized infrastructure management platform that we can all benefit from. So let's get started. So why listen to GISinc? Well, we've been strategically aligned with Esri and the ArcGIS platform for over 29 years now, and we have currently around 130 passionate professionals with one core purpose, and that's to help our customers fully leverage the GIS investment that they have to gain better insight through location-based technology. We've been early adopters in both the utility network and cloud services, acquiring both specialty designations respectively from Esri. And in fact, we are the only platinum business partner with Esri and CityWorks that also hold the release ready, the utility network management, and the ArcGIS cloud services specialty designations. We take the time to learn, train, and prepare ourselves so that we can pass that knowledge and experience on to you. So what I want to do today is walk you through three sort of big bucket items here. And that's what you need to know to even get started with utility network or cloud services, what some of the benefits that you receive by using these technologies, and what you need to do to get started. So let's begin with talking about what you need to know. And I'm going to start off about 2009 when I first started with GISinc. I helped deploy our first cloud solution using Amazon Web Services. And since then, you can see from this chart the trend that we've experienced with our organizations and customers that are adopting the cloud. This year is unique, to say the least, and even with the COVID pandemic, or because of it, we're seeing an even more increase in the activity and discussions and projects within this space, which goes along with what we're seeing in the industry and what the industry is telling us. This chart from RightScale shows the adoption rate from 2016 to 2017, and you can see the big three providers there: Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. And if you compare that with the 2018-2019 statistics, you can see the saturation is still among the big three there, but they're growing. And what I take away from these charts is the adoption rate, for one, and two, the providers are competing for your business, for our business. And this competition drives the cloud services cost down, which is good for us. And I believe now is a perfect time to look at cloud services, if you haven't already done so, for things like implementing the utility network or other technologies, your web GIS infrastructure in the cloud. Let's look a little closer at the ArcGIS Utility Network, the Water Solution Foundation, and let's see what's required to get started. And we can break this down into sort of two categories. The first category is an enterprise approach using an enterprise geodatabase, which we refer to as Utility Network Foundation. This requires the deployment of ArcGIS Enterprise. It is a client-managed environment that you can highly customize. It takes advantage of versioning, localized schema, and this is really meant to fit the intent for mid to large size utilities. So you can see there the enterprise, the pro, the utility network management, those are all required to kind of fit this enterprise geodatabase platform. Now, there is another offering here, and it's called the Simple Hosted Services offering, where we deploy the Water Distribution System Foundation, where you really get started with just ArcGIS Online and ArcGIS Desktop, ArcGIS Pro, and it literally takes only minutes to deploy using your organization's account in ArcGIS Online. It's meant for simple features only, so you're doing simple editing. There's no network capabilities, no versioning in there. It's really a project-based approach there. You still get to use ArcGIS Pro for your precision edits and topology, relationships and things like that. And there's also a geodatabase option that you can leverage within this environment here. So this offering is meant for that small organizations that want to get their feet wet, want to learn a little bit about this new utility network schema and tools, and also leverage cloud services, right? ArcGIS Online is a cloud-based platform as a service and software as a service environment. And I want to give you a quick little example of what this might look like. So I'm going to bring over a web browser. I'm going to start off by going to the Water Distribution System Foundation Solutions page. This is where you get started. This is where you learn how to deploy this solution inside of your ArcGIS Online organization account. And once you deploy this, what you get is a series of feature services and web mapping applications and web maps. You can see here the water mains and valves and structures and so on and so forth. All these services are feature services that you can use to edit within ArcGIS Pro, so you still maintain that precision editing at the desktop level, but you get the ability to publish this information out as web maps, as you see here, which then feed right into your web applications. And that's browser-based, tablet-based, smartphone device-based. It still gets to leverage that whole breadth of tools and solutions provided through ArcGIS Online. And I can begin to get familiar with the new schema, the tools, the editing capabilities, how this whole utility network platform works inside of a cloud-hosted environment called ArcGIS Online. Now let me go back to the PowerPoint here, and let me remind you too that sometimes it's a little difficult or maybe challenging to make that jump or find the right time to move into one of these platforms. We at GISinc provide what we call utility network jumpstart, so we can help jumpstart your process through some tried procedures that we've used with our customers, migrating them from the geometric network or other GIS-based schemas into this platform, both in either the enterprise space or the simple hosted space. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into the enterprise side. Let's look at the components that are needed. We talked about desktop, so you need at least ArcGIS Pro 2.4 or higher with the UN add-in tools. You need ArcGIS Enterprise. We recommend 10.7.1 or higher. You can technically start at 10.6.1, but we found it a little more straightforward and easier to implement starting at 10.7.1. Your ArcGIS server must be federated with a portal, and prior to 10.8, there was a sort of a different licensing model. So you have the UN licensing, but you also had to license or deploy the UN extension. It's no longer needed at 10.8, and we'll talk about that here in a second, because 10.8 offers a new user type extension. And then the final piece of this component would be the enterprise geodatabase. And you can see here from this list, the enterprise geodatabase is supported on multiple relational database environments like SQL Server all the way down to SAP HANA. Now, what's interesting is that you look at the versions of these platforms. This has been around for a long time. This is it wasn't just thought of over the night or last year, but you think about ArcGIS Pro desktop has been around for 5 years or more, right? They're at version 2.5 something now. Enterprise has been around for over a decade, and the geodatabase has been around for even longer than that. And the Water Distribution Utility Network Foundation is at version 3.4. So my point here to this slide is that this is a very solid platform that you can be confident in, that you'll have the tools and the platform and the environment to deploy, use, and share the information through this new process, both on-premise and in the cloud. So let's take a little look deeper into this user type extension. So think of user type extensions as a way that Esri is providing this extended way that users can use and access applications, compatible applications that provide this very specific access to functionality all through the REST endpoint. So starting at 10.8, ArcGIS Enterprise 10.8, the first release of utility network user type extensions is going to be the mechanism that you use to enforce access or security. You may have heard also the parcel fabric is another example of Esri using this REST-based endpoint, this user type extensions to license access to these services. So specifically for the water or the utility network, what does this look like when you deploy this? So let's take a look at the services. So this is an example of the services that get deployed when you release the utility network within your infrastructure. And these are the 5 services: feature services, map services, you've got versioning, utility, and network diagram services. The ones that are highlighted there in the orange area are the ones that are enforced by that user type extension. Again, they're all accessible from the REST endpoint, but those are the ones that are locked down, that are licensed, and you need to have that extension in order to access that. So let's use that concept, this enforcement concept, and look at the user types across the board and how this might play out. So you should be familiar with these user types, from viewer all the way up to the GIS professional. And recently released was the insight user and the storyteller user. But it doesn't matter, right? Across the board, if any of these users need to view or query the information inside the utility network services, that's available right out of the box, right? You don't need to have any more additional user type extensions to do that. It's only when you want to provide that extended capability to those 2 services, the utility and the versioning side. You need to provide that user type extension add-on, and that's where this is enforced. So you can see across the board there that it works from the viewer all the way up to the GIS professional. But even at that level, if you deploy standard or advanced professional, then it's already included as part of that release. So how would this platform, how would you adopt the ArcGIS Utility Network in a cloud environment? Let's take a quick look at that. And I'm going to use Amazon Web Services as an example here. So this is a typical way of deploying ArcGIS Enterprise with utility network capabilities, where we might have a virtual private cloud sitting inside one of the available regions in Amazon Web Services within their availability zones, and we would typically separate out the components. So maybe have a public subnet that allows the HTTP ports and HTTPS communication through the web adapters. This is where we might manage access to remote desktop gateways. We might monitor traffic through a network address translator. These components can be deployed in the public subnet. But in the private, to help keep things even more secure, this is where we'll deploy the other components of ArcGIS Enterprise: Portal, an ArcGIS server, the data store, and even ArcGIS Desktop. So we have a lot of discussions with our customers of where desktop sits and where can it be used to access these services. Remember, they're REST-based services. So this is one of those examples where you could have ArcGIS Pro on-premise and access utility network services that are hosted and managed in the cloud. And typically, whenever we deploy ArcGIS Enterprise in its entirely here, we always have an active production environment, but because of the licensing, we are able to have a passive production environment that could be used as a disaster recovery or failover environment that's on standby. And one of the benefits of the cloud is to be able to only pay for what you use when you use it, so this passive production can be turned off and only leveraged when needed. Now, you also need to have that UN server. So typically when we deploy any kind of ArcGIS Enterprise, you have this web GIS where we have those components: the portal, the server, the data store, the web adapters that help support our web GIS, our traditional means of leveraging that platform. So typically we like to isolate out the utility network in its own server role component. It's not necessary to get started, but that's a best practices. Now, we talked about desktop, and I showed it here as part of the deployment process, but you can also have desktop have different roles or capabilities. So in the cloud space, we can create these virtual machines where desktop might sit and be deployed on. We can have virtual workspaces, or using technology like Amazon Web Services AppStream, where we can actually, in this animation here, leverage ArcGIS Pro right inside of a thin client, like a web browser client. Okay, so we can access the environment through a thin client. We can build out these environments to spec. So maybe I need to work with not only the utility network, but I want to work with 3D or imagery or doing some caching. This is, again, another benefit of using the cloud environment to provide and provision that environment and use that on demand when I need it and pay for only what I use when I use it. So we talked a lot about what you need to know to get started, from a licensing and components and infrastructure and where things kind of sit. Let's talk about some of the benefits that you receive from both the utility network and cloud services. And I'm going to start off with the utility network. We're going to walk through a few ideas here. So one is the field mobility, being able to be connected and disconnected, to maintain that connectivity throughout my working day, where I'm going indoors or outdoors, using native applications or web applications. Again, both from an indoor perspective and an outdoor perspective. Bring that GIS wherever you need that. Bring that technology where you need it. We can have access to this cross-platform integration where I'm on any device, anywhere, anytime. I'm on desktop, on tablet, I'm accessing and running geoprocessing scripts and services and tools on any one of these clients. I have access to a modernized architecture where I'm using service-oriented approach, right? That REST-based access to the data itself. I leverage ArcGIS Pro, which is that 64-bit application. I get to use ArcGIS Enterprise and all of the added ability and capabilities and functionality that comes with that web GIS platform. We get the ability to use this improved asset representation, this high fidelity data model with explicit connectivity and asset capabilities, and using these new things like containments and associations and terminals within the scheme that help me manage my information across the board. And this is truly a platform that is not only built for now and the problems we're facing now, but into the future. This is something that Esri has really invested a lot of time and effort in. So, and they provided these tools that really make it hard for us to make bad data. We can have configurable levels of information. We can provide tracing. We can do this in 2D and 3D and manage all of our vertical assets. A really nice platform for managing our complete utility infrastructure. Now, if we take that and look at what the cloud offers us from a capabilities or a benefits perspective, and it's interesting how we've seen even the term of the cloud sort of evolve over time, but our expectations of it. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the capabilities. So this goes to the notion of we can really replace the traditional legacy capabilities that were provided in a traditional data center, right? So data center would give us a VM, some networks, some storage, and things like that. But now we go beyond that with load balancing services and serverless computing and elastic storage and services and automatic updates and things like that. We also gain performance through optimized infrastructure, the ability to scale up and scale down when needed, to have that elasticity in the platform, into the storage, into the infrastructure, to have the additional reliability and redundancy built into these cloud services offering, give us a great benefit. Another one is cost. We get to trade out capital expenses for variable expense, right? Avoiding that hardware refresh that might come every 3 years and 5 years in a traditional data center, and gain from economies of scale. So the more you use, the less you pay, and you pay as you go and for only what you use. So cost really becomes a nice benefit for leveraging the cloud. And then finally, but not nearly the last component here, is security and compliance, because this is a very big topic and concern. So we still get to maintain physical control and security over our environment. And we have this shared model. All cloud providers require a shared security model where providers are responsible for security in the cloud, and we are responsible for security of the cloud. So we can still maintain that physical aspect. We maintain what firewalls are open and how we configure our virtual private cloud and how we gain access and who we give access to and how do we provide security policy and password policies and things like that. really provide a nice sort of shared benefits opportunity we get with the cloud. So I want to focus a little bit more here on security and compliance, and I want to bring that into the context of how it's perceived that cloud security or the lack of is more of a myth than reality. And this begins with the notion that our data, being stored on servers and services and systems that you don't own or control, there are myths that cloud computing is inherently less secure than traditional approaches, and this paranoia around um, is due largely to the fact that the approach itself just feels insecure. And so I'm going to introduce sort of 4 features that hopefully will demonstrate why the fear of the cloud is more of a myth than reality. And the first one here is strong perimeters and surveillance. So cloud providers put in place very secure precautions, including things like high fences, barbed wire fences, concrete barriers, guards that patrol the area 24/7, security cameras, and so on and so forth. These places are built very secure for good reasons, right? Because they are responsible for a lot of companies' content and data and services. They also provide controlled access, whether it's the employees of these data centers, if it's the vendors or visitors. They're all physically separated from any one company's mission critical data. And that controlled access is very important. I remember having the opportunity to visit one of these, and the level of security and scrutiny that I had to go through just to even get into the facility was pretty incredible. Cybersecurity experts and having access to that. So not only do these cloud providers have the best of the breed and state-of-the-art data centers, but also access to highly skilled IT professional teams that are experts and specialize in cybersecurity and constantly undergo training and continuous access to these highly advanced systems and processes and tools to help track down and monitor these risks. And also, they undergo regular audits, right, to help protect against flaws in their security systems. They have to do this process. Now, I've been in this business for almost 30 years now, and I've literally been in data centers that look just like this picture on the right. I remember going into one data center that the door to the actual data center was propped open by a fan to help keep it cool. And I heard a story once where this local government had a bathroom on the second floor. The data center was on the first floor, and the pipe broke and water started leaking down into the data center. It's just hard for me to think that we can provide a more secure environment than these data centers. And they also offer extended service offerings, cloud security offerings that are put in place to help enable organizations to focus on your missions, right? What's important to you, which help minimize the distractions of building and managing a traditional in-house data center or IT solutions. And the big ones here I'm going to talk about are from Microsoft and Amazon. Microsoft has one called Azure Government or Government DoD. Amazon has their AWS GovCloud. And what they do is they provide these environments that have already have these security components in place to do certain things like provide FedRAMP capabilities or FISMA or HIPAA. So if you need to have that additional security capabilities and offerings, these cloud providers already provide that. So we talked about what you need to know, some of the benefits behind both utility network and cloud service. So what do you need to do to get started? So I want to take this from both approaches. One, when we help our customers implement the utility network, we go through a series of processes that start with the Readiness Assessment and go around the horn there from data cleansing and platform implementations and so on. You can kind of read that there. We also have a series of processes that work with those who want to just migrate to the cloud, whether it's just their web GIS, right, or their ArcGIS Enterprise platform, which sort of follows the same sort of processes where we start off with a readiness assessment. We look and do an inventory of their content. We look at strategies for migrating. and we go around those processes. But when we look at these together holistically, we can actually merge these processes together and come up with a really nice plan of attack to modernize your infrastructure management through the utility network and cloud services. And I want to highlight just a couple. I want to go through each one of these, but you can kind of see some of the processes there. I want to start off with the readiness assessment. This is key for migrating the U into cloud services, and it takes very thoughtful planning and preparation. And before I go into the actual steps, I want to kind of highlight one thing here, and that is I think it's very important that you develop a migration working group within your organization that can help be the champions and help see this process through. But the steps really go like this. And this is this part of the readiness where we're going to have a planning meeting. We're looking at the infrastructure. We're going to look at staffing requirements and needs. We're going to look at the data, the inventory, and what's required to get from one to the other. We're going to look at editing workflows. Where does my desktop sit? How do my editors get access to the system? Right, all those desktop competency needs. And then we're going to kind of plan out an execution roadmap. And all that's done in the readiness assessment, which helps us then take that throughout the rest of the process. So now when I go into the data cleansing and inventory process, I already have this overarching idea of how things are going to work and behave. Now I just need to implement them throughout the rest of this process. The other one I want to highlight is platform implementation. I think this is very important because there's different things to think about here in supporting and migration. And I want to highlight one of our good partners, SSP. They have a product called GISinc that allows us to take that utility network and keep it in two platforms while we're doing that migration process. This is not a fast migration process. This is something that's going to take some time, and we want to make sure that we can still maintain our level of data management while we're making this process. So we're going to use tools like SSP Sync. We're going to use tools like the data loading tools within Esri. We're going to use other tools and extensions at the desktop level. We're going to create a development environment where we're going to do all this work. We're going to remember that utility network requires a little more resources. We want to make sure we have the right components in place. We're going to put ArcGIS Enterprise in place. We're going to look at the latest versions of the schema. We're going to remember that this new user type extension there. We're going to kind of go through all these processes to do this migration and make sure that we're adhering this to the entire platform. So we get this platform in place. We have this dev environment ready to go. We can start doing this migration planning and integration planning and moving out through the rest of these steps here. Another thing I want to kind of highlight is education and outreach. This is one of those things that literally goes, I think, through all the steps, because this is where, if we go back to that suggestion of creating this working group within your organization, because doing this kind of change, moving to the utility network and cloud services all at once may be a little scary. We want to make sure that we're taking our time, we're doing the right steps, we're educating, and we're helping folks along the way. So each one of these steps, the readiness assessment, the data side, the platform, the migration, all have a certain level of education and outreach where we're going to use that working group to be the main advocates of this, and we're going to continue that process. We're going to offer training, we're going to offer support through this whole process. So then when it's done, it's not this mammoth thing that we just drop on people's laps. They've come with us along this journey, and they're ready and eager to start using this new platform. So I want to kind of close up with a couple slides here with things like, asking the right questions. What can you do right now to kind of help this process out? So first off, do I have ArcGIS Enterprise? Remember, utility network is a service-based architecture requiring enterprise. There is that service, that hosted service, simple hosted services offerings, with which you do have the ability to have a single user file geodatabase, but when you go enterprise, you got to have that ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. Do you have a standardized data model? And this is really going to impact the migration strategy and affects that process, the number of customers and connections and system size and things like that. Do you use ArcGIS Pro today? If not, there is definitely a need to get started migrating off of ArcMap into Pro and learning that process and the buttons and the capabilities and how to do things in the ArcGIS Pro, because that's where you'll be in the new platform. Do I have any third-party tools that leverage my non-UN network now today, like any asset management systems or billing or SCADA or things like that? got to ask yourself, what might break if I move to the utility network, okay, and or to the cloud. So we'll talk about that here in a second too. And do you need any help, right? We've been through this process several times. We've scraped our knees. We've patched ourselves up, right? We've helped several clients get through this whole process, and we can help you as well. Well, I think one of the biggest risks that people fail to kind of really look at when they do any kind of migration to the cloud is the content migration. Right, so you got to think about things like your deployment environments. Do you have a production stage, test, and development? Do all those need to move to the cloud, or can I have a hybrid approach? What about authentication? Do I use built-in Active Directory, SAML, or something else? How many databases are going to be affected? What format are they in? Can I do a backup and restore? Is there other services that I can leverage within the cloud for my databases? What about data processing? Are there any automations or scripts in place that help any of my data engineering, cleaning up data before I use it within the GIS that might also need to be moved over? What about all the reconstruction of our projects? Right, again, that golden question there, where does a desktop editor sit? And where and how do these editors get access to the information? What about republishing my services, whether they're hosted, map services, GeoVent, image services, whatever it might be, rebuilding those web maps and applications, and holistically looking at those business systems. Again, ask yourself, what is going to break if I move my GIS to the cloud or my utility network to the cloud? Okay, quick review. So we talked about what you need to know, looking at the platform and licensing and access and things like that. We looked at the benefits across the board from cross-platform integration, the cloud offerings, the field mobility, the future of utility networks. And then we looked at what you need to get started, what you need to do from that readiness assessment all the way down to that education and outreach. And so when we look at this holistically, we want to say the best way to get started is start off with that readiness assessment. That's that short duration, agile approach to help jumpstart this process, right, for modernizing your infrastructure management. And we have several offerings to help with your organization for all aspects of cloud or your utility network journey. But for those just getting started, again, we recommend the readiness assessment. Go to readiness@gisinc.com and ask for some help, or go to our webpage, info.gisinc.com/readiness, and start your migration process today. I want to thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, again, reach out to me, Steve Mulberry at gisinc.com, or hit our readiness@gisinc.com or our website for more information. Thank you.